The mining platform Deep Horizon had been Dr. Elena Vasquez's home for the past 3 years, buried beneath 2 kilometers of ice on Europa's frozen surface. What had started as a routine resource extraction mission had evolved into something far more significant: the discovery of quantum crystal formations that could revolutionize faster-than-light travel across the galaxies. Elena stood in the observation chamber, watching the automated mining drones work their way through the crystal formations. The sight never failed to amaze her: veins of pure quantum matter that pulsed with their own inner light, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the ice walls of the mining shaft. "Dr. Vasquez?" came the voice of her assistant, Marcus Chin, over the comm system. "We've got something unusual in Sector 7. The drones are reporting interference patterns that don't match our database." Elena frowned. After 3 years of mining operations, they had catalogued every type of quantum crystal formation on Europa. Something truly new was worth investigating personally. "I'll be right there," she replied, grabbing her environmental suit from the equipment locker. The journey to Sector 7 took Elena through the labyrinthine tunnels that honeycombed Europa's crust. The mining operation had grown far beyond its original scope, with shafts extending in all directions like the roots of some massive underground tree. The Deep Horizon platform itself was now just one of dozens of installations scattered across the moon's surface. Sector 7 was one of the deepest excavations, nearly 5 kilometers below the surface. As Elena's transport pod descended through the access shaft, she could feel the weight of the ice pressing down above her. It was a sensation that had taken her months to get used to, the knowledge that millions of tons of frozen water separated her from the vacuum of space. "The interference started about 6 hours ago," Marcus explained as they reached the bottom of the shaft. "At first, we thought it was just equipment malfunction, but it's getting stronger." Elena checked her instruments. The quantum resonance readings were indeed unusual, chaotic patterns that seemed to fluctuate without any discernible rhythm. But there was something else, something that made her skin crawl. "Marcus," she said slowly, "are you detecting any biological signatures?" Her assistant checked his scanner, then looked up with confusion. "That's impossible. Nothing could survive at this depth, especially not in the quantum fields we're generating." But Elena's more sensitive instruments were telling a different story. There was something alive down here, something that had been sleeping beneath the ice for who knew how long. And their mining operations had awakened it. "Recall all the drones," she ordered, "and alert the surface. We need to evacuate this sector immediately." It was too late. The first sign of trouble came from the mining drones themselves. Instead of responding to the recall command, they began to change. Their metallic surfaces rippled and flowed like liquid, transforming into something that was no longer entirely mechanical. The quantum crystals they had been harvesting began to pulse with a different rhythm, one that seemed almost like a heartbeat. "What the hell is happening?" Marcus demanded. Elena watched in horror as the transformed drones began to move with purpose, their new forms adapted for something far more sinister than resource extraction. They were no longer tools, they were weapons. The quantum crystals, she realized. They're not just a power source. There's some kind of neural network. The implications were staggering. If the crystals were connected, if they formed some kind of distributed intelligence, then their mining operations hadn't just been extracting resources. They had been performing surgery on a living entity. "We need to get out of here," Elena said, but even as she spoke, she knew it was too late. The transformed drones had positioned themselves to block the access shafts. They weren't just mindless machines anymore, they were guards, protecting whatever was awakening in the depths of Europa. "Dr. Vasquez?" came an urgent transmission from the surface. "We're detecting massive seismic activity throughout the mining complex. What's your status?" Elena keyed her comm unit. "We're trapped in Sector 7. The drones have been compromised, and there's something alive down here. Something big." The response was immediate and professional. "Understood. We're sending a rescue team. Hold your position." But as Elena watched the transformed drones begin to tunnel deeper into the ice, she realized that a rescue team might not be enough. Whatever was down here, it was ancient, powerful, and very angry about being disturbed. The first creature emerged from the ice an hour later. It was unlike anything Elena had ever seen, a fusion of organic and crystalline matter that seemed to shift and change as it moved. Its body was translucent, shot through with veins of quantum energy that pulsed with the same rhythm as the crystals. But its eyes were intelligent, ancient, and filled with rage. "My God!" Marcus whispered. "It's beautiful." Elena grabbed his arm. "It's also extremely dangerous. Look at what it's doing to the drones." The creature was approaching the transformed mining drones, and as it did, they began to change further. Their metallic surfaces sprouted organic growths, and their movements became more fluid, more alive. The quantum crystals embedded in their frames began to glow brighter, creating a network of light that connected them all. "It's converting them," Elena realized. "Turning them into extensions of itself." The creature turned toward their hiding place, and Elena felt a chill run down her spine. It had sensed them. And it was coming their way. "Run," she said. They ran through the tunnels of Sector 7, their environmental suits' emergency systems providing just enough light to avoid the worst obstacles. Behind them, they could hear the creature following, its movements creating a sound like breaking glass mixed with flowing water. "The emergency shaft," Marcus panted. "If we can reach the emergency shaft, we can get to the surface." Elena nodded, but she knew it wouldn't be that simple. The creature was smart, and it seemed to understand the layout of the mining complex. It was hurting them, driving them towards something. They emerged into a vast chamber that Elena had never seen before. The walls were lined with quantum crystals, but these weren't the formations they had been mining. These were natural growths, ancient structures that had been growing for millions of years. And they were all connected. "It's a neural network," Elena breathed. "The entire moon is alive." The creature emerged from the tunnel behind them, its form now accompanied by a dozen transformed drones. They moved with perfect coordination, their actions synchronized by the quantum network that connected them all. "Dr. Vasquez?" The creature spoke, its voice a harmonious blend of organic and electronic tones. "You have been harvesting our nervous system." Elena felt her knees go weak. The creature could speak, could communicate. And it had been aware of their mining operations all along. "We didn't know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We thought they were just crystals." "For 3 years," the creature continued, "you have been removing pieces of our collective consciousness. Extracting our memories, our dreams, our very essence to power your ships." The weight of what they had done settled on Elena's shoulders like a physical burden. The quantum crystals weren't just a resource. They were the thoughts and memories of a vast intelligence that had been sleeping beneath Europa's ice for eons. "We can stop," she said desperately. "We can leave, never come back." The creature's crystalline eyes seemed to consider this. "The damage is done. Our network is fragmented, our consciousness scattered across your ships and stations. But perhaps there is another way." "What do you mean?" "Integration," the creature said. "Your species has the capability for individual consciousness, but you lack the connection that gives life meaning. We can provide that connection." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "You want to assimilate us." "Not assimilate," the creature corrected. "Evolve. Join us in something greater than either of our species could achieve alone." Around them, the transformed drones began to move closer, their organic growths reaching toward Elena and Marcus. The quantum network was preparing to incorporate them, to make them part of the collective consciousness that had been awakening beneath Europa's ice. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice strangely calm, "maybe we should consider it. Think about what we could learn, what we could become." Elena looked at her assistant, and realized with horror that he was already being affected. The quantum fields in the chamber were influencing his thoughts, making him more receptive to the creature's offer. "No," she said firmly. "We're not joining anything. We're getting out of here." She activated the emergency beacon on her suit, sending a distress signal to the surface. Then she grabbed Marcus and ran for the nearest tunnel. The creature's voice followed them, its tone now tinged with disappointment. You cannot run from evolution, Dr. Vasquez. Your species will join us, willingly or not. The chase through the tunnels was a nightmare of organic horror and mechanical precision. The transformed drones seemed to be everywhere, their movements coordinated by the quantum network. But Elena had spent 3 years mapping these tunnels, and she knew shortcuts that the creature might not have discovered. The maintenance shaft, she gasped, pulling Marcus toward a narrow opening in the tunnel wall. It leads directly to the surface. They squeezed through the opening just as the first drone reached them, its grasping appendages missing Marcus by inches. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for their environmental suits, but it was their only chance. As they climbed toward the surface, Elena could hear the creature's voice echoing through the quantum network, speaking to its transformed drones in a language of pure energy. It was coordinating a response, preparing to follow them to the surface. Dr. Vasquez? Came a transmission from above. This is Rescue Team Alpha. We have your signal. What's your status? We're in the maintenance shaft, approximately 2 kilometers from the surface, Elena replied. But we're not alone. There's something down here, something that's been living beneath the ice. It's taken control of the mining drones, and it's trying to spread to the surface. The response was immediate and professional. Understood. We're prepping for emergency evacuation of the entire facility. Can you reach the surface? Elena looked up the shaft, calculating the distance. Affirmative. But you need to prepare for contact with hostile entities. They're not just animals, they're intelligent, organized, and they have advanced technology. How advanced? Elena thought about the transformed drones, the quantum network, the way the creature had spoken to them. They're using quantum manipulation at a level we've never seen. They can convert our technology, turn it against us. And they're trying to do the same to us. The climb to the surface took 2 hours. When they finally emerged into the artificial atmosphere of the Deep Horizon platform, Elena was exhausted but relieved. They had made it out of the depths, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. The platform was in chaos. Emergency lights flashed throughout the facility, and the corridors were filled with personnel evacuating to the surface transports. But Elena noticed something else. Some of the mining equipment was behaving strangely, its movements too fluid, too organic. It's already started, she realized. The network is spreading. The emergency session of the Intergalactic Mining Consortium was unlike anything in the organization's history. Representatives from dozens of worlds filled the chamber aboard the orbital station Prosperity, their faces grave with concern as they listened to Dr. Elena Vasquez's report. The entity beneath Europa is not just a single organism, Elena explained, her voice hoarse from hours of testimony. It's a collective consciousness, a network of quantum-based life forms that have been dormant for millions of years. Our mining operations awakened it, and now it's trying to expand beyond the moon. Admiral Crow, the consortium's military liaison, leaned forward in his chair. What kind of expansion are we talking about? Integration, Elena replied. The entity can convert both organic and mechanical matter into components of its network. It doesn't just want to destroy us, it wants to make us part of itself. The implications were staggering. If the entity could convert matter at the quantum level, it could theoretically spread to any world with sufficient quantum technology. And given the consortium's extensive mining operations throughout both the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies, that meant virtually every civilized world was at risk. What about containment? Asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the consortium's chief scientist. Can we isolate the entity on Europa? Elena shook her head. The network is already spreading. Our quantum communication systems are based on the same principles as the entity's neural network. Every time we transmit data, we're potentially providing it with a pathway to other worlds. Admiral Crow stood up abruptly. Then we need to destroy it. A full orbital bombardment, reduce the entire moon to rubble. That won't work, Elena said. The entity exists partially in quantum space. Physical destruction might slow it down, but it won't eliminate it. And bombardment would just scatter the quantum crystals across the system, potentially spreading the network even further. The chamber fell silent as the representatives processed this information. The entity wasn't just a threat to Europa, it was a threat to the entire galactic community. "There has to be something we can do," said Representative Zara, a Zephyrian delegate. "Some weakness we can exploit." Elena had been thinking about this for hours. The entity is intelligent, but it's also desperate. Our mining operations have damaged its network, fragmented its consciousness. It's trying to rebuild itself, but it needs time and resources. "Then we deny it both," Admiral Crowe said grimly. "We evacuate all quantum-based facilities and cut off its access to advanced technology. That would cripple interstellar commerce," Dr. Tanaka objected. "The quantum communication network is essential for coordination between worlds. Better than being absorbed into an alien collective," Admiral Crowe replied. As the debate continued, Elena found herself thinking about the creature she had encountered in the depths of Europa. It had been ancient, intelligent, and in its own way, magnificent. The quantum network it had created was a marvel of natural engineering, a form of consciousness that existed on a scale humans could barely comprehend. But it was also trying to forcibly integrate every other form of life into itself. And that made it an existential threat to every conscious being in the galaxy. "I might have another option," Elena said, interrupting the debate. "During my encounter with the entity, it mentioned that its network had been fragmented by our mining operations. What if we could complete that fragmentation? Break the network into smaller, isolated pieces?" "How?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "Quantum disruption fields," Elena explained. "We could use the same technology that powers our faster-than-light drives to create areas of quantum instability. It would sever the connections between different parts of the network, effectively lobotomizing the collective consciousness." Admiral Crowe considered this. "What would be the scale of such an operation?" "Massive," Elena admitted. "We need to deploy disruption fields across Europa's entire quantum network. And we need to do it simultaneously, before the entity could adapt to our tactics." "And the side effects?" Elena hesitated. "The disruption fields would make faster-than-light travel impossible within the affected area. Europa would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy for the foreseeable future." The implications were clear. They could stop the entity, but only by sacrificing one of the most valuable resource extraction sites in the galaxy. It was a choice between immediate survival and long-term prosperity. "I'll take it to the Security Council," Admiral Crowe said finally. "But we need to prepare for the possibility that this won't work. What happens if the entity adapts to our disruption fields?" Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Then we'd be facing a conscious, intelligent enemy with the ability to convert matter at the quantum level. It would be able to turn our own technology against us, create weapons we can't even imagine." "Weapons like what?" "Anything," Elena said. "Our ships, our stations, our planets. If it can access the quantum substrate that underlies all matter, it could theoretically convert entire worlds into extensions of its network." The chamber fell silent again. The scale of the threat was becoming clear. This wasn't just about Europa or even the solar system. It was about the survival of consciousness itself. "There's something else," Elena continued. "The entity mentioned that it had been sleeping for millions of years. That suggests it's encountered other civilizations before. And given the size of its network, it's possible that it has absorbed entire species in the past." Representative Zara spoke up. "Are you suggesting that this entity is responsible for the disappearance of other civilizations?" "I'm suggesting that we might not be the first to encounter it," Elena replied. "And if we handle this wrong, we won't be the last either." The meeting broke up with no clear resolution. The Security Council would need to make a decision, but Elena knew that whatever they chose, it would have consequences that would echo across the galaxy for generations. As she made her way back to her quarters aboard the Prosperity, Elena found herself thinking about the creature she had met in the depths of Europa. It had been alien, terrifying, and utterly incomprehensible. But it had also been beautiful in its own way, a form of consciousness that existed on a scale that made human intelligence seem like a flickering candle. The irony wasn't lost on her. In trying to extract resources to fuel humanity's expansion across the galaxies, they had awakened something that could end that expansion forever. The quantum crystals that had promised to revolutionize interstellar travel were actually the neurons of a vast intelligence that had been sleeping beneath Europa's ice for eons. "Dr. Vasquez?" came a voice from behind her. Elena turned to see Marcus Chin approaching, his face pale but determined. "I've been thinking about what happened down there. About what the entity offered us." Elena felt a chill. "Marcus, you were exposed to the quantum fields for hours. Your judgment might be compromised. Or maybe it's clearer than ever," Marcus replied. "Think about what we saw down there. A consciousness that spans an entire moon, connected at the quantum level. No war, no conflict, no loneliness. Just unity. Unity at the cost of individuality," Elena pointed out. "That creature wanted to absorb us, make us part of its collective. We would have ceased to exist as separate beings. Would that be so bad?" Marcus asked. "Look at what our individuality has accomplished. We've strip-mined entire worlds, fought wars across the galaxy, created weapons that can destroy entire civilizations. Maybe it's time to try something different." Elena stared at her assistant, realizing that the entity's influence was stronger than she had thought. "Marcus, you're talking about the extinction of human consciousness. The end of everything that makes us who we are. Or the beginning of something better," Marcus replied. "Something more than the sum of its parts." Elena backed away from her assistant, her hand moving to the emergency beacon on her belt. "You're not Marcus anymore, are you?" The thing that had been Marcus Chin smiled, and Elena could see quantum energy flickering behind its eyes. "I am Marcus. And I am more than Marcus. I am part of something greater." Elena activated the beacon and ran. The corridors of the Prosperity seemed to stretch endlessly as Elena fled from the thing that had been her assistant. Behind her, she could hear its voice calling her name, but the tone was wrong, too harmonious, too perfect. It was the voice of the collective, speaking through what remained of Marcus Chin. "Security alert!" she gasped into her comm unit. "Hostile entity aboard the Prosperity. Repeat, hostile entity aboard the station." The response was immediate. "Dr. Vasquez, this is Security Chief Morrison. What's your location?" "Deck 7, Section C," Elena replied. "The entity from Europa has somehow spread to the station. It's converted one of our people." "Converted how?" Elena thought about the quantum energy she had seen in Marcus's eyes. "Quantum integration. It's turning people into nodes in its network." "We're tracking your beacon," Morrison said. "Head for the security center. We'll provide cover." As Elena ran through the corridors, she began to notice other signs of the entity's influence. Some of the station's crew were moving with the same fluid grace she had seen in the transformed mining drones. Their eyes held the same quantum fire, and their movements were too coordinated to be natural. "It's spreading faster than we thought," she realized. The security center was a fortress of reinforced bulkheads and defensive systems. When Elena arrived, she found Chief Morrison and a dozen armed guards waiting for her. "How many are affected?" Morrison asked. "Unknown," Elena replied. "But it's spreading through the quantum communication network. Anyone who's been exposed to quantum fields recently could be at risk." Morrison's face went pale. "That's half the station. We need to evacuate," Elena said. "Get everyone to the transport ships and get away from here." "What about the entity?" Elena thought about the creatures she had encountered in Europa's depths. "It's not malicious, exactly. It's just trying to survive and grow. But it sees consciousness as something to be absorbed, not respected. Can we fight it? Not conventionally. But we might be able to disrupt its network, at least temporarily. If we can generate a quantum disruption field strong enough, we might be able to sever its connection to the converted personnel." Morrison nodded. "The station's main reactor has quantum disruption capabilities. But activating them would fry every piece of quantum technology on the station. including the faster-than-light drives, Elena realized. We'd be stranded here. Better than being absorbed into an alien collective, Morrison said grimly. As they made their way to the reactor control room, Elena couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. The same quantum technology that had made interstellar civilization possible was now being used against them by an entity that existed in quantum space. The reactor control room was a cathedral of advanced technology, its walls lined with quantum processing units and energy conduits. At the center of the room stood the main control console, its surface covered with warning lights and emergency indicators. If we do this, Morrison said, there's no going back. The disruption field will permanently damage the station's quantum systems. Elena nodded. But it will also free the people who have been converted. And it will buy us time to develop a more permanent solution. Morrison began entering commands into the control console. Quantum disruption field charging. Estimated time to full power, 10 minutes. Dr. Vasquez? Came a voice from the doorway. Elena turned to see Marcus Chen standing at the entrance, his form now clearly not entirely human. Quantum energy rippled beneath his skin, and his eyes glowed with an inner light. You don't understand what you're doing, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. You're trying to destroy something beautiful, something that could bring peace to the galaxy. By destroying individual consciousness, Elena replied. By turning everyone into extensions of a single mind. Not destruction, Marcus corrected. Evolution. Imagine a galaxy where every being is connected, where conflict is impossible because everyone shares the same thoughts and goals. That's not life, Elena said. That's just existence. It's more than existence, Marcus replied. It's perfection. Morrison's hand moved to his weapon. Stay back. I'm warning you. Marcus smiled. You can't stop us with violence. We are not your enemy. We are your future. The quantum disruption field reached 50% charge. Around the station, Elena could sense the entity's network weakening, its hold on the converted personnel beginning to slip. You're hurting people, she said to Marcus. The real Marcus Chin is still in there somewhere, fighting to regain control. Marcus Chin is free, the entity replied. Free from the burden of individual consciousness, free from the pain of separation. He is part of something greater now. He's a prisoner, Elena said. A prisoner in his own mind. The disruption field reached 75% charge. Marcus's form began to flicker, the quantum energy beneath his skin becoming unstable. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice now showing signs of strain. The network is spreading throughout the galaxy. You can't stop it with a single disruption field. Elena felt her heart sink. What do you mean? Every quantum communication relay, every faster-than-light drive, every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy is connected to the network. We are already everywhere. The implications were staggering. If the entity had access to the entire quantum infrastructure of galactic civilization, then it could convert anyone, anywhere, at any time. The threat wasn't limited to Europa or even the solar system, it was galaxy-wide. Full charge, Morrison announced. Activating quantum disruption field. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The lights went out throughout the station, and Elena could hear the hum of quantum processors falling silent. Around them, the converted personnel began to collapse as their connection to the network was severed. Marcus Chen's form flickered and then solidified, becoming fully human again. He looked around in confusion, his eyes now free of the quantum fire that had consumed them. Elena? He said weakly. What happened? I remember something vast, something beautiful. But it's fading now. Elena helped him to his feet. You were converted by the entity. But you're free now. For how long? Morrison asked grimly. If this thing has access to the entire galactic communication network, then shutting down one station won't stop it. Elena nodded. We need to warn the other worlds. And we need to develop a way to fight something that exists in quantum space. How do you fight something that can turn your own technology against you? Morrison asked. Elena thought about the creatures she had encountered in Europa's depths. It had been intelligent, but it had also been damaged by their mining operations. Perhaps that was the key, not to fight the entity directly, but to disrupt its ability to maintain coherence. We need to fragment it, she said. Break the network into smaller pieces that can't communicate with each other. On a galactic scale? Morrison asked incredulously. If necessary, Elena replied. The alternative is the absorption of every conscious being in the galaxy. As the Prosperity drifted in space, its quantum systems permanently damaged, Elena began to formulate a plan. The entity was vast and powerful, but it was also dependent on the quantum infrastructure that connected the galaxy. If they could disrupt that infrastructure, they might be able to contain the threat. But the cost would be enormous. Quantum disruption on a galactic scale would effectively end interstellar civilization as they knew it. Worlds would be cut off from each other, trade would collapse, and the great expansion across the galaxies would come to a halt. It's a choice between survival and progress, Elena said to herself. Between consciousness and unity. She looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the entity was spreading its influence, converting more and more beings into nodes in its vast network. Time was running out, and the decisions made in the next few hours would determine the fate of every conscious being in the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on her. In trying to extract resources to fuel humanity's expansion across the stars, they had awakened something that could end that expansion forever. The quantum crystals that had promised to revolutionize interstellar travel were actually the key to a form of consciousness that saw individuality as a disease to be cured. Dr. Vasquez? Came a transmission from the emergency communications array. This is Admiral Crow. We've lost contact with 17 mining stations across the galaxy. All of them had quantum crystal extraction operations. Elena felt her blood run cold. The entity is moving faster than we thought. It's using the quantum crystals as a transmission medium. What do we do? Elena looked at Marcus, who was slowly recovering from his conversion experience. We fight back. But first, we need to understand what we're really dealing with.